Welcome everybody to Mom Your Own Way. We're at season 2 and obviously I am excited. Welcome to Mom Your Own Way podcast where we talk all things moms do, different ways to mom. And today I have Cheryl Amelang joining me today, who is not only a birth boot camp instructor, childbirth educator, but also a mom of 6. So I'm really excited to talk to her. So let's get started. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good, and it's so good to meet you, and I'm actually so stoked. I love talking to moms and just to hear different ways of parenting, different things they've done. I have never talked to a mom of 6.
That's a lot, right?
That's a lot. You're like running a tiny daycare within your own house. I mean, your experience just got to be through the roof. And then on top of that, you also do birth educating, and you run a boot camp where you train others to kind of do the same as well and get that education kind of.
Yes.
You're passing all of your knowledge. I mean, you're like the Wikipedia of motherhood where other moms can like type in and be like, yo, Cheryl, what's going on? Because I'm so excited to talk to you and ask all these questions, but with kid 1, you learn something. Then second, you learn how to do 2 kids, and then they're different. Then there's third. Now you got 3 different personalities, 3 different things going on, different time. Then 4, 5, 6. I mean, what do you drive?
I drive a 12-passenger van.
Yes.
Yeah. That's actually a funny story. So when we had our 6th baby, well, before that we had a minivan, and then we got pregnant again, and I was like, we have outgrown. Like, you can't put, they don't allow you to put a car seat on top of the van or anything. So we were like, we have to upgrade. I know, safety and all. And so my husband and I, we were like, we are not getting a 12-passenger van. Like, we are cooler than that. And so we're like looking at all these, all these different cars. And finally we were both like, that's really what we need, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, fine. And now we love it. It's like the best thing.
Yeah. You got the kids.
Yeah, I'm at the library because I live in the country and my internet isn't great. And so I didn't want to like mess this up. And so now they're.
You're so sweet. Take your time and go to a different location. I always try to tell people like, it's online, so it's super comfortable. Do whatever you need to do. And I'm sorry you had to go to a different location.
Oh, no.
I like really all the kids passing by.
I know. It's really great.
Yeah.
They're looking in.
I feel like maybe they probably can't see me wave, but whatever.
Maybe. I don't know. That's so funny.
Tell me your story. How, like, you can start at the very beginning of who Cheryl is, but I'd love to know about your motherhood, how you got into the boot camp, I'm just so, once I read, so we met through a friend and I read your Instagram bio, but I was like, this girl's doing it. I'm over here struggling with one. I'm like, how do these moms have so much time to do all of these things? And you're doing it. So I want to know motherhood, boot camp, time management. Okay. Tell me about you. Tell me your story.
Yeah. So my husband and I got married when we were 19, and we had our first baby when we were 22, or I guess I was 10 days shy of turning 22. And growing up, I babysat a lot. So I thought like, oh, this is going to be so great. And everybody always told me like, you're going to be such a good mom. You've got this, blah, blah. And it was, I think about this a lot, actually, especially like over the years. When people told me I would be a good mom, I equated that with this will be easy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And when it wasn't easy, I wasn't sure I was a good mom. And so I struggled with that for a long time. Just that motherhood is hard. It's just hard. And I think it helped when I identified that, when I realized that's where that always feeling less than came from, was that it was a well-meaning comment, but it just manifested in me in a way that they didn't mean for it to, but it's just how I took it.
Yeah. Created your own expectations that you were trying to meet. Yes. And then when there's a gap, you just start instigating and investigating, okay, well, why isn't it adding up to this vision that I had for myself?
Right.
I love that comment you made. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good. And So, and actually you like nailed it when you said you had your first one and then you have your second one and realize like, okay, they're going to have different personalities. Because I didn't know that about children, is that they all, even though they come from the same two people, they're all different. And so I had the second baby who wasn't like the first one. And I had to learn how to mother him differently, how to respond to him differently. And I'm really glad that I was able to like see that, because I think a lot of times, especially like I feel like with like my parents' generation, it was very, like children act a certain way and you treat them all the certain way and they're all going to come out the same way.
Same way parenting with everybody.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I don't know how I did, I guess instinctively, but I picked up on the fact that this kid is going to be different than my first one. I'm going to have to do things differently with him. And then we just kept adding them every 2.5 to 3 years. So my oldest is, so I have 4 boys, 2 girls. And so I have 17, 15, 13, 10, 8, and 5.
That's amazing. What an amazing gap for all of them too, because they have somebody really close age that they can kind of play with.
Yes.
Somebody a little bit older who's probably a little more responsible, kind of takes care of them if need to, steps in about certain things, but also exemplifies like a role model that they can look up to who's within family. So you have like an older friend, every kid wants an older friend to hang out with, but this is your family. So I can see how that could be really cool. And I'm sure for you, it's helpful knowing that they have these, they're not only family, but they're friends. They can rely on each other. They can help each other out. When did it, how do I phrase this question? I'm going to say easier for lack of a better word.
Okay.
But when did it, at what number kid, because I've heard after 3, it actually becomes easier because.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah? Okay, tell me about it.
Well, okay, I will say when you have one, that's all you have one. And like I think it's hard to even, until you're in it, realize that like one tiny human can take up every like waking and sleeping second of your entire life. Like it's so consuming.
That's how I feel right now. So I'm there. Okay.
Yeah. And then you have another one. And I think adding the second one is the hardest because you have 2 people that need you. Likely you have a toddler and you have a baby. So you have 2 people that need you. Yeah. When you have 3, now you're on zone defense, which can be hard. But when you add a 4th one, like your older ones are now actually helpful. And so I think, like to me, adding number 4 was probably the easiest transition because I had older kids at that point that could hold the baby for a minute or make the other one a sandwich for lunch while I was nursing the baby or, get me something that I needed. So I actually felt like I had help at that point, which was really nice.
It's funny. I often think, which is impossible, but like, if only there was 2 of me, because I want to constantly be with the baby and attend to all the needs. And not even that, just I don't want to miss moments. I'm super needy as a mom. Like I love her and I want to be there. And everyone's like, just take time off. And I'm like, I just love her. But there's certain things that still need to get done. I still want to do this and follow my other passion. So I'm like, if only there was 2 of me. And then the way, right? And then the way you just described it, it made me think of like, since these are your children and you are raising them, they are mini yous. So in a way, once you, let's say you're at your 4th one, you do have that kind of copy of you, but who is there to help you with those things and have a pair of extra hands to be around. And another mom told me something that I thought was really cool was that she really enjoyed, because when you're playing with a baby, sometimes it's not as fun for moms. It's not very entertaining for us to read the same book or listen to the sounds, whatever. But with the kids, they all enjoy it. So she had found that her toddlers were playing a lot with the baby. And so they were all kind of just hanging out together, which allowed her more time. Yeah. Is that what you kind of see as well?
I think so too. Yeah, definitely. Like, I think them having each other, to play with and entertain each other, and I think is really helpful. Yeah, it has been for me.
I love that. I grew up in a larger family. I have 3 older brothers.
Okay.
And so I
My
think on
fourth one
some.
was a girl too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I had 3 boys and then a
Silly.
girl.
Did you guys have like a gender reveal? Were you nervous? Did you think it was going to be another boy? What was that about?
So our gender reveals were always when the baby came out of me. Yeah.
Oh, yay. That's
So
so surprising. That's so fun.
yeah, yeah. With our last one, I really wanted to find out what we were having. And my husband was like, "We never find out." And I was like, "Dude, we're grown ups. We can do whatever we want."
Yeah.
And I went to the ultrasound or 20-week ultrasound, and I wanted to tell the ultrasound, like, just give me like a little wink, girl, like,
Yeah.
you know. And I decided not to because there's no way I could keep that to myself.
Yeah.
And we waited, and it was just such a like magical moment of finding out right there. So I'm glad I didn't have her wink at me.
I love that. It's hard to keep secrets, especially from
It
those you
is.
love that are awesome secrets.
Yeah.
You're just like, I want to tell you because I'm excited and I want you to be just as excited with me.
Well, and he'd probably be like, "Why are you buying all this pink stuff? Like,
Also, that.
you know something I don't." So I
Also,
just,
that.
just the practicality of it wouldn't have been great.
That's true. Oh, I was going to ask about the clothes. Since you have so many kids, do you keep your clothes? So then for boys and girls, you guys kept, or did you get all new? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, we did the whole hand-me-down thing, and it's actually
Awesome.
so my last 2 were a boy and a girl. So number 5 was a boy, and number 6 was a girl, and so they're my last ones. So it's really weird to like get rid of those clothes that they
Oh,
like. I
and
have,
you've had them for a long time. That
yeah,
would
yeah,
like an
and to
end of an
not like,
era.
yes, yeah, I have all these empty bins up in my attic that aren't holding clothes for the next kid. So it's really weird. It's weird to move into a new phase of life that I kind of never thought that would actually happen. People told me that
Yeah.
these things would happen, and so to actually be experiencing it is totally different. It's really
Yeah.
weird.
That's so interesting.
Mhm.
I'm not struggling with one, but she really does take so much of my time that I struggle thinking about another kid.
Mhm.
Something that I saw a video that I really like the way this lady put it, and she said, for those moms who are struggling deciding if they want another, let's say those moms with one kid who are struggling. So what you should do is picture yourself 20 years from now at a holiday dinner. Let's say it's Thanksgiving. It's you and your husband and then your one kid. Who else is at the table? Is it that one kid who grew up, or do you see your holiday dinner bigger? And that kind of put it in a different perspective. I'm like, I can see how right now it's hard, but if we were to look in the future, do I want this intimate family that we have right now, which so far that's just what we're doing, but if God bless us with more, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a great way of putting it. So instead of thinking of like, oh, I'm struggling so much right now, how will I ever take on more responsibility or be needed more? Where this kind of took this road around and said, hey, this time that's hard, it will pass.
Yeah.
Things that are hard right now, they are hard. And no one needs to excuse that or say it's going to, like things are difficult. And it's getting adjusted to a new thing, getting know your baby. I mean, there's just so many things that are going on. But looking at it from when these few years that are so hard, they do go by. And then do you see your family bigger? Do you want a larger thing? That's such a large conversation.
It is. Yeah. I think there are also things that go into that we don't think about when we are planning our families. Just, things that I never thought about that are coming up now. Like, I will soon have 2 teenage boys on our insurance policy.
Wow.
Yeah, we have college coming up for these, so the
Yeah.
emotional aspect, like one thing that really surprised me, like that I didn't anticipate, I guess, is when kids are young, when they're little, they're physically demanding. And as they get older, they're emotionally demanding. And like they need more of me emotionally. And I didn't anticipate that. And so that's been, I think, something that I've had to figure out, like, okay, how do I give more of myself? Like I've been giving myself physically for years and years and years. Like I'm used to not sleeping. I'm used to changing diapers, like all these things that are just physical. But then thinking about emotionally, with, these teenagers, and they're coming into,
Oh my gosh, boy teenagers. I can't even.
yeah, and my 10-year-old girl, and she's asking me about periods, and
Oh
and I know,
man.
and she's asking me, she's like, Mom, can we go on a date? I really just need some time with you, and so thinking like, okay, so
Stop.
I need to, it's precious,
But you also need
and
time for that.
yes, exactly. So thinking about how, when they're little, you make them all a peanut butter and jelly. They all sit down at the table at the same time. We read a book at the same time, and how when they get older, they need you in a different way. And it's really, it is really special and precious. I
But it's
think
also
that's something
consuming.
it is, yeah. And, and then also, I think something else that I didn't realize is that I evolve too. So I'm figuring out who I am as a 40-year-old woman, while I'm also trying to figure out, having these teenage boys and having this girl who needs time with me. And,
So
you know,
really quick, how are you I was trying to do this math earlier because you
okay.
said you had a 17-year-old, and I was like,
hmm
that doesn't make sense. Because you look really, I can't, how old are you?
Well, thank
You don't
you.
have to answer.
I'll be 41 in April.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You don't look
Yeah.
like that at
Oh, thanks.
all. I thought you
Thanks.
were 30.
Oh, thank you.
No,
Maybe
I
that's
don't
what it is.
I don't think
Yeah.
do you like you look young. You look 30 and then you said 17. I was like, I think she's lying about some she's doing her math wrong. I know she knows her
I'm
kids
doing
better
my
than
math
I
wrong.
do.
Yeah.
You look amazing. Look how
Oh, thank
happy
you.
those kids make you. You look younger having 6 kids.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you look fantastic.
Thanks.
I mean, I don't
Thanks. I
know
hope
what
I
you're
can keep it
doing.
up. I hope I can keep it up.
At this point, if you've kept this up for 40 years, I think you're good. I think people are going to be like messaging you about your skincare routine.
Oh
Like,
my gosh, you're sweet. Thank you.
I don't think you understand how serious I am. Like, you look really young. I'm baffled that you're 40.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're.
I'm baffled that I'm 40 because they said that it'll happen, but here I am. It's wild.
So, have you been changing diapers? Sorry, I ate a piece of ice.
That's okay.
I hate doing that because it sounds bad on thing, but I just hate doing that in my teeth. So I'm double mad. You've been changing diapers for,
A long time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're really good at it.
Yeah, I'm pretty efficient. Yeah, we consistently bought diapers for 15 years, I guess, something like
Man,
that. Yeah. Um, so I was really glad the time I went to the grocery store and did not
yeah,
buy diapers. It was really exciting. It was really great.
they get expensive too. Well, they can.
hmm
Man, I mean, what would you say would be, because you had mentioned, things differ from your first one and then your second one. Uh, what would you say would be the biggest difference that you had to learn from how you approach one kid to your second one? Was there like a really
hmm
big difference that happened? I know they're all different. I mean, you can talk about all of them. I want to hear how they're all different and how you're doing it. I
Yeah.
think everybody would want to know.
Um, I so with my first one, he was just he really was like the perfect child, like, obedient, did all the things, um, just 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 a really, really great kid. And I had my second one, and he was equally great, but wasn't as easily corrected.
Okay.
And I remember I have this like this specific memory, and I was telling him that he needed to pick up some toys, and when we were, and he wouldn't do it, and so I was handling it the same way I would have handled my first one, and we sat there, I don't know, 30 minutes or something, just going round and round and round, pick up the toy, pick up the toy, pick up the toy, and I looked at him, and I looked at his face, and I looked at his eyes, and something hit me that I'm going to have to use a different tool parenting this one.
Mm,
And and he needed more like explanation. He needed more like,
okay.
Like, let's pick
Why
up
do
the
we need to
toy.
clean this
Right.
up?
We need to pick up
Okay.
the toy because it's time to do that, because the toys don't belong on the floor. They belong in the bin. If the toys stay here, then we can't do the next thing we were going to do because the toys are in the way. Like, he just needed a little more, like, yeah, just explanation. Like, why are we doing this?
I don't want to do it just because you told me. I need to know the reason behind it. And
Right.
then, okay,
Right.
I love that.
And
Okay.
and my first one didn't. It was pick up the toys now. And he picked up the toys,
Yeah.
and he's just very like, all right, he's still very that way, just very go with the flow.
Mm.
Um, and and I was just having this conversation with some of my sister-in-laws, but just like thinking of them as like little people. I mean, they are like,
Yeah.
they're humans, and sometimes and it's always okay to say, we're doing this because, and giving an explanation. Like, they're not robots who are just going to pick up the toys because you told them to.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, this is why, especially if they're the type of person who needs a little bit of explanation. Like, I think that's good. And I'm really, really grateful that I tuned into that with him
Yeah.
early, because I think it's helped me over the years relate to him, because I relate to him differently than I relate to my older one.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
it's so helpful for other moms because I've heard a couple of conversations where moms kind of struggle connecting to their kid, knowing exactly especially when it comes to
mhm,
not necessarily discipline, but setting boundaries or rules or
yeah,
doing things like cleaning up and having that time to figure out the right approach with
mhm,
that individual.
yeah,
That, I mean, we do that when we are like choosing a mate. You could be dating anybody, but then you figure out how this one person works. And people
right,
talk about like the love languages and different personalities and how do just sharing information. How do you do it to this person? Do you just tell them? Do you explain things? There's different
yeah,
ways. And
right,
so, and that comes to the one person, and then that's somebody who's your peer and they should understand things and they're a little bit older. So now you're taking that, but you're talking to a little person who's just learning the world, but they're their own, and so,
right. They are an individual in their own little
yeah.
selves, and they deserve that time to figure out who they are. And I think this is something else that makes it um, challenging, I guess, to have a big family, is that I have to figure out how to relate with each of my
Mm-hmm.
children, and I want to have that special relationship with each one of them, because they are individuals,
Yeah.
and that takes time and effort on my part, which I want to do. I want to be able to do that, and yeah, because they're their own little person, and they're like each of them are individually so amazing. If they were all little carbon copies of themselves, of each other, then you know
It'd be weird. I
it
think
would
if you
be
had
weird.
tiny robots, you'd be like, how?
Right, it would be so weird, yeah. So it's
How?
really it's lovely that they
Yeah.
all are so different, and
But it can all be time consuming because you have to
mhm,
not only are you go from having one relationship with your spouse to then having two relationship with your spouse and you
yeah,
first, and then now you have seven relationships that you're trying to juggle,
yeah,
and that's just your family, and then you yourself also now have this boot camp
mhm,
program that you're running. You're educating other moms, you're getting to know info. I'm sure moms are sharing lots of information with you, and so you have a big backpack. You've got a big backpack that you're carrying a lot of information in.
mhm, yeah. I think it's been really great, like teaching classes too. So I teach birth boot camp classes. I'm on the headquarters team of birth boot camp. There's four of us, so which is really fun. I get to be involved in all the projects and all the curriculum and all the things. I love it. But one thing that I think has helped me grow as a mom and as an educator and as a woman is seeing all these different families and how they are all so different, and how they're all
Mm,
so unique, and how they have different needs and desires and wants and dreams, and the way they grow is different. And I think that's helped me, like, also um, just understand the world better, and how, like, there's no right way to do anything.
yeah,
There's no right answer. There's knowing all of your options and doing what's best for your family.
yeah.
And I love that I've had that experience. Like, I'm so grateful that so many couples have allowed me into that space, because it's very, preparing for the birth of your baby is huge, and it's like a really special pocket of time that I get to be part of, and I really love that. And but it's been so interesting just hearing so many different kinds of stories and seeing so many different kinds of women, and I feel very blessed that I have been able to be part of that and learn about them, and because it's helped me grow as well.
I can see the back and forth of it, because things you're learning from them, you can either take on certain rules or changes or whatever works and put them to use towards your family, or things that worked or didn't work, you can also share with them and kind of do the back and forth. You kind of remind me of like a pastor, and I hope it doesn't come off in a rude way. I mean it in such a compliment where, you get to, the way I see pastors, they have this knowledge of the Bible, and they use stories to connect and help families. And they inspire people, and they encourage love and, this family union. And you kind of almost get to do that. You talk with these families, and you get to take on this really private, really emotional, and almost sacred moment in their life of bringing a baby into this world, first, second, third baby. Usually there's also, marital issues that could appear, and you can kind of help along with those. It's like, okay, well, when the baby's born, here's some responsibilities that pop up. How are you going to share those responsibilities? How are you going to communicate through those?
Yeah.
And so I think people go to like a pastor before they get married, and they kind of do a little almost like couples therapy. I feel like you're doing that, but with a baby, of like, okay, let me help you, prepare you for what's about to come. And they trust you. They're putting themselves, their heart, and their kid's heart kind of in your hands, saying, okay, we trust you.
Yeah.
Help us through this moment. I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I think it's like magic to me. I mean, so the classes that I teach, they vary in length, but the one that I've taught the longest, it's a 10-week class. And so when they first come into the class, they are, like, I don't really know what to expect. What is,
first day in class.
Yes. Last 10 weeks, like kind of really, really unsure. And then I think it's so beautiful watching them grow closer to each other throughout class, because like they did this thing together, and now they're going to do this big thing together to get, to birth their baby. And it really is magical just watching their growth over those 10 weeks, and then hearing their story after they have the baby, and hearing how they work together, and how it was such a beautiful experience for them as a couple. And I think we don't hear that often in our culture, that that birth can be like this really beautiful, amazing experience. We hear scary stories, we hear birth trauma, and so, I mean, usually the first day of class, we're talking about birth, and I'll say, giving birth was my favorite thing I've ever done. Wow. And it really was. Like, each time was amazing. And my last baby, she's 5. She's the cherry on top of our family. Like, she's just the sweetest, cutest, little funniest thing. And her birth was amazing. Like, it was just magical. And we don't hear that, like, really ever. And so, by the time they leave class, they're confident. They've grown closer together. They've had these wonderful conversations with each other about how they want this birth to go, and how they, how their family's growing. And it's really like, it's I could talk about this all day. It's just my favorite thing. It really is magic to me. So
it's so silly watching you just talk about it. You love it.
Yeah.
You really love it. You were made to do this. You have found your calling. It just fits. It works, and it makes sense. And I love that you're doing exactly what you want to do. And it involves not only helping your own family, because through all of this, God knows how much stuff you're learning, but you're helping so many families.
Yeah.
It's so incredible.
Thanks.
It's what an honor.
Yeah, it really is. I really do feel like super lucky that I get to do this, that I get to be just this
Yes.
piece of somebody's birth story. So,
I wish I had you out here. I have a very, very opposite story.
mhm,
We got pregnant. We could only see the doctor at week 20. We had
mhm.
moved, so we just went to the first doctor that was able to see us.
Okay.
Um, she kind of scared us. We were originally going to do a home birth, but she scared us with a horror story that this mom like bled out, and so she was just afraid that things would go wrong. So we turned away from a home birth and did a hospital birth. I was really intimidated at the hospital. I didn't know what to expect because of COVID. There's no classes available, so we didn't take
Okay.
any classes, didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
And then overall, the way you talk about how the couples can learn things, I think that's something my husband and I could have really benefited from. I think we've
Mhm,
learned a lot through this last year
mhm.
of how to maneuver now with this new person who's occupying 100% of my time.
Yeah.
Um, but we're just getting over the hump of understanding that we both hold different things. We both have different things we have to do, and how do we talk about them? What's the responsibility? But we struggled. We struggled through a lot because at times I feel like I'm doing everything. I'm sure at times he feels like he's doing everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like we could have been more prepared. We've learned so many things through our experience of
Mhm.
being first time parents, and you just learn, and so you adapt and you
Right.
figure it out.
Yes.
But I feel like if I was a little bit more prepped, perhaps that transition would have been smoother. Because I think it was really just abrupt. Like we just had a baby, and then we were home. We had to figure it out, and we
Yeah.
did. And
Of course.
my husband and I like were best friends. We both work from home, so we literally spend 24/7 with each other.
Mhm.
And I think what I didn't really understand at first is that at first I was like, well, I'm always with the baby, like I need more help. And I didn't realize that because I was always with the baby, like I felt alone because I was always with the baby, but he also felt alone because I was now away. So he
Right.
kind of lost his best friend.
Yeah.
But I felt like I'm doing everything. I'm like, why can't he commit? And he, and it took me a really long time to figure out. I actually just a few days ago sent him a text and I was like, hey, you know what? I haven't realized that I felt alone, and I was like in my own sad party that I was so alone, feeling alone in my
Mhm.
motherhood, that I completely ignored his needs of as a best friend who's always with him and love him and his wife. I accidentally and unfortunately separated myself from him because I was so busy with the baby, and he's doing everything else for us to have this amazing life and just like supporting me and doing everything. But our roles are different, and I
Yeah.
was expecting him to be a mom, which he isn't.
Mhm.
And so I think I'm finally now, because I'm able to see that, I can recognize things a little bit better. But it took me a long time. And I think if we had a
Yeah.
little bit more just preparation, even talking to other couples or talking to somebody who's experienced like you, I think that transition would have been a lot smoother.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard. I think that was something that would probably that surprised me when we had our first baby too, was just like how do we relate to each other now? How do I like um even just, like I didn't even know that like touched out, like that was a
Oh my
term,
gosh.
you know?
Thank you.
I had no idea. And then I had this friend who was like, "Oh, I'm just so touched out." And I was like, "That's it. That's what I am too."
Yes.
And I didn't even know how to really identify it. And,
Yes.
so yeah, I think it's hard. And I think that the communication is so huge, is, speaking up about what you need, what you're experiencing, and then your partner
Yeah.
also feeling like they can do that too. And then coming together and saying like, okay, well, what do we do now? Where do we go from here, so that we can make
Mm-hmm.
sure that that all of our needs are being met. So there's just so much about communication that's so important. And I talk a lot about that in class, like, leading up to your birth, like communicate so you can, how to help her, and, what she wants, and, and when you communicate, there's no guessing, right? Like
Yeah.
you just say like, this is what I need in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. And then your partner knows, okay, this is what they need in that moment. And then
Yeah.
I can do that. When we sit around trying to guess what we think the other one wants or needs, it makes it hard. But I think you're right. Like it's identifying that, because sometimes you don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize that we
You
don't
don't
even
even
that you
see it.
don't even see that you're not communicating.
And that's my biggest issue. Like, personally, I overall tend to like just try to do everything that I can, and like I'm almost very independent. He tries to help so much, but like I'm just moving in my own groove daily. And I think I really struggled asking for that help because I don't think I really knew what exactly it is that I needed. Because at the same time, like, I need a break, but I also don't want to leave my baby. I need to get water, but I also, like, I don't want to leave because I don't want to go down the stairs, but I also need the water. They're so silly and so little, but they add up to these big things. And I think this is in a bigger spectrum, but I have a lot of like personal trauma through things where I try to identify people's feelings in the room and try to relate to them and try to maneuver things so nobody gets angry. Granted, my husband's like not angry. He's so you get it.
Yeah, you totally just described me.
And you just try to guess and you try to like almost tiptoe around things and make everyone feel really special and welcome and home when you're this host. And I try to get out of that mindset. I'm like, I'm not a host. I am a wife and I belong in this house and I have my own needs and I need to explain those needs instead of trying to do everything by myself, trying to do it all together at once. And in some weird way, and it's not even true when it comes to my husband because he's so loving and so great, but I'm like, oh, what if like, if I don't start the coffee and it's not ready for the morning, like he's not going to have a nice morning. And like, he'll make the coffee. He really doesn't care. But I like almost create these situations trying to avoid conflict. But again, it's due to my childhood trauma that I'm trying to deal with.
I have the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so silly because I think that's what really inspired me to focus on parenthood and talk to more people. Because there's so much to parenthood because you're raising this other kid, but you're also raising yourself again because you start figuring out like, oh, well, when I was little, this happened and that's how now I'm affected and I'm teaching you to do this, but let me unlearn this so I can teach you the right thing or learn from you because you're doing this a different way.
Right.
And I think in a way, I had a weird childhood, so I want to make sure that like my daughter has the best childhood, but then it's like, well, what does that look like?
Yeah.
What does that look like to me? And then I need to have that conversation with my husband as well. What does that look like to him? We both have fathers who are missing from our lives. And something we've talked about so many times, but we don't necessarily have discussed what do we think good fatherhood looks like. We both have really strong mothers who raised us singular, by themselves and did all that. And so we almost look to that as an example. But when it comes to fatherhood, what does good fatherhood look like? And it looks so different to many people.
Right.
But what will it look like to us? And what is the conversations that are happening there?
Right.
I've been so caught up in this whole trauma thing because I know how heavily it weighs on me. And I'm just scraping the iceberg of what it is and how it's made me like act. Even certain things I'm just starting to realize where like my certain traits of oversharing or wanting to do everything for everybody is a trauma-based response because I'm trying to avoid conflict or an abusive situation or anything like that. But so many of my defense mechanisms are part of my personality that I didn't even know that's how they came about. So now I'm just peeling this onion, if you want to call it. I'm digging this hole, just trying to refresh this garden of mine to try to figure out, okay, well, what are some of my characteristics that I am acting out upon that are part of who I am truly and are authentic and genuine? And what are those that are trauma responses? Like one I just found that I had no idea, but like if I'm cooking breakfast, I'm making eggs, there's nothing troublesome about it. But if someone asks me like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm making eggs. Like I'm almost shocked and like, I'm sorry I'm making eggs. Like I immediately go into this like, I'm sorry I'm walking up the stairs. I'm sorry I'm reading a book. It's this apologetic way of describing my actions that I know for a fact that person didn't mean. But inside of me, that's how I hear it. And then you start wondering, and you're like, is that how I just hear all of my reality? Is that how I hear others? And I mean, I can go on and on for this, but I'm like, I didn't know that was a trauma response. I just thought, I don't know, everyone's out to get me because I'm cooking eggs, which, it's a poor example, but like.
No, I totally get it. Yeah. No, I have very much the same. It sounds like we have similar trauma.
Do you mind sharing about your child? If you don't have to, if you don't want to, I'm just.
Well, it's just it's just interesting how I mean, like you said, like when you are, I had great dads. I had my parents are divorced, had a stepdad who treated me like his own daughter. Like I had good parents. But there was still a lot of not great things that went on. And so it's just interesting how just the things that you realize going along. I mean, my sister and I were just talking the other day about like folding towels and how we fold towels. Like
I can have a conversation about this. I can have a conversation about towel folding.
Yeah, like we were talking about, and she was like, I had no idea that I had so much trauma wrapped up in how I fold towels. And I was like, I had never considered that. We were talking about these towels and I was like, I do that too. And I do that too. And, we were talking about, why it was such a big deal about how we fold towels.
Yeah.
And so it's really, it's weird. I think that, and you start digging into it when you have kids and when you start thinking about how you want their childhood to be different than your own. And then, even relating with your partner about, I mean, like you said, like eggs, or like I realized when John will start, doing the dishes, I think he's doing that because he's mad that the dishes aren't done, because that's how it was in my house growing up.
Yeah.
When actually he was doing the dishes because they were there and he saw they needed to be done.
Yeah.
And so he just did them.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was like a lack on my part. Like, I'm sorry, I should have already had the dishes done. And he's like, literally don't care. I'll just do them. So,
but it's important to communicate that, because where I have found myself, at least, is when I don't share that thought.
Yeah.
I hold on to it. And then I'm like, how do I make up for it now? Because if, let's say that was the situation and now he's doing something that I should feel like I should have done or something, how do I make up for it? Or, just different thoughts start running through my mind, versus when there's been situations where I share a thought. One of the things that it's so dumb. I feel bad that I'm talking about, because it makes it seem like maybe my husband would get mad, but he isn't. I would think like, oh, he had to stay up late, and so I wanted him to sleep in, but we were kind of being loud with the baby. And so I was like, oh, I'm sorry I've been so loud. I'll take her downstairs. I don't want you to wake up. And he's like, oh my gosh, I love hearing you with the baby. Like, open the door. I want to hear you guys. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, my childhood stuff, we all had to be quiet. And, he's not mad at me. And I need to remember that whoever I think is going to be mad at me isn't here, and I am safe.
Yeah.
But I struggle remembering that. And I think I'm so passionate about wanting to give my kid a really safe childhood, so she doesn't have to worry about these things that I'm constantly kind of flipping through, trying to figure out and solve. Because I'm so busy doing that, I could be doing other things. Like I want her to have the freedom in her heart and on her mind that she isn't concerned trying to figure out what voids she needs to fill or what validation she needs to gather from someone. I want her to feel so safe and secure in her own self that she puts all that energy and passion into whatever the heck she wants to do. I mean, if it's making eggs, go make eggs and do them however you want to. But I noticed the other day, my husband likes to leave his cabinets open and his fridge open. It's just a thing. And I was like, why am I so bothered by the fridge being open? Like, if he's still getting stuff, that's the way he wants to do it. I am so bothered by it. What the heck? And they're like, my dad used to yell at us for leaving the fridge open or leaving the doors open, then the temperature gets out. And I mean, I can hear it in my head. And so I think, oh no, my dad's going to get mad if you leave the fridge open. We're not living with our parents. And my husband pays our bills. If he wants to leave the AC on, he's obviously going to get the bill. He's going to figure it out. Like, he knows what he wants to do. Let him be comfortable and have whatever temperature he wants and get whatever he needs out of the fridge.
Right.
But I was like, why am I so stuck on this? And it took me a second to try to figure out, because I was like, well, he needs to just close the fridge. And I'm like, why am I mad about him opening the fridge?
Yeah.
It's such a small, minuscule thing.
Yeah.
But I had to get a shovel and I started digging. And I'm like, what the heck is this about? Why am I so mad?
Well, I think it's great that you are like that you are digging into those things now, because I think like for me, I'm just now starting to do it. And so like as I'm working through all of, trying to dig up all these things and that onion layer that you said, like, and there's so much that I'm realizing about myself and the ways that I do things and why I do them this way or why I'm triggered by certain things, while
Yeah.
also having these teenagers, like I said earlier, like needing me
Needing you.
emotionally.
Yeah.
And so like I don't have the space emotionally to, you know, I guess I have to. I have to
Yeah.
figure out how to, and for the most part, I think I do, but how to work in me while also desperately trying to do a good job to
Yeah.
emotionally support these kids. These like, I mean, my oldest he's graduating this year. Like he's about to like go be a real adult, like on his own. And
Oh my God.
I know, right? It's like a really big responsibility. And
That's weird to think about because like I feel like I almost just graduated. I mean, it was 20
yeah,
years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. But you're like, I feel like I just graduated, and you try to think of your emotions of like,
yeah,
if that's like having a boyfriend, but him having a girlfriend, being accepted. Do you like the classes? Do you know what you're doing? Everyone's saying college now, but do you know what you want to do in there? Some people, like,
right.
it's such a big change,
It
and they all
is.
just say like, "Oh, go to your counselor." Like our counselors were crap. I don't even know why we went. We just got a signature. I didn't even understand that you could like you should talk to your counselor to figure out your path. Like I didn't even understand that's what they were doing. But I feel like as teenagers, and since teenagers are assumed to be adults most of the time, I think they're kind of disregarded to be like, oh, you're an adult, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
And then it's like the kids need a little bit more assistance, so you focus on them. But it's hard being a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard. There's so many things that are unknown. There's a lot of expectations that you also put on yourself. At least I did. Within your own like group of friends, your own town that you're in, because there's different culture, there's different things you do. And I watched this video where these girls, once they get accepted into a university, they all kind of like jump, turn around and say their university and whatever, they're excited. And I was like, that was never a thing in my school, nothing we ever did. But I love that they're doing and they're so passionate about it. But then I also start thinking like, I wonder if there's some people who would feel lonely if they didn't get into like a video to do it. And so it's almost like a thing you have to do.
Yeah.
Like get your yearbook signed, but also make sure you do this video with your friends, because it's like an extra activity that you have to add on to all the responsibilities that you have to do as an adult. Are these traditions that are also going on in your area?
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
I mean, it's just I don't know if I have any room to speak. What I'm trying to gather from my own trauma response learning and like thing is I'm hoping to make more room inside of myself, because right now I'm holding on to these things that aren't affecting me positively in any way. It's just things that I also recently learned that I have blocked out a lot of my childhood. Like people talk that they remember when they were 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years. I don't remember anything before the age of 6. And only like a couple of memories then pretty much I don't remember anything before the age of like 9 or 10. I mean, like I'm missing giant chunks. And from what I've learned, it's me doing it consciously. And what I did is I pushed it back into my very subconscious, but it's not like I deleted them. So if I was a phone, my data is full and I can't accept any more things, and I have to get rid of this data or I can't take on any more pictures. And what I want to do is take all the memories in and allow this room within myself and in my heart to love and do things unconditionally, and make sure that I am offering the best advice that I can to my daughter from both sides, and then she learns to choose the way she needs to, instead of passing on a trauma response and telling her that's the appropriate behavior.
Right.
And so I'm trying to get rid of all of these nasty weeds. I'm trying to like pull them out of this garden and uproot it all. And so I have more room for those emotions that I know I'm going to have from her. Yeah. And so I know you had mentioned, you have stuff that you're dealing with and this other stuff. And somehow you have to like simultaneously get this stuff out while putting new, fresh emotions in, which is a lot. It's just a lot.
It is.
It's just a lot for you. Also, meanwhile, you're running and helping all these other moms and dads. Oh, forgot. I was going to mention. So something, again, I really like that you put couples together. My friend Alicia, who had told me about you, something I love about her is sometimes we'll just talk about what's going on, and we'll talk marital life, whatever, and she is so good. Her and her husband are so good about talking things out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk to her in the morning, and then if I talk to her in the evening, she's like, oh yeah, and we talked about that, and this is how it went. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're my hero. Like,
they are precious.
They are precious. They're amazing. But she had mentioned that your boot camp had helped so much kind of prep them and help them talk through certain tough things. Like, it almost like they were prepared for it. So when it did happen, they said, hey, this was this thing that we kind of discussed. And the way I see it, almost gave him like an intro to have that discussion, have that conversation, instead of, where I struggle is like, how do I even bring this up? How do I, whatever, you go through all your things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And I just admire that in her. And so I love her. I love Matt. I love that this is the kind of, I don't even know what to call it, but like, this is what you do for people.
No, I love that.
This is what you do, and you were born to do it. Like, the way you speak about it is so beautiful. Like, there's like an innocence of a child of how pure it is.
I love that. I do. I love it. It's really interesting. So after I had my third baby, I decided I wanted to be a doula. So a doula is like a birth support person. But I had 3 little babies, and so I was like, that's not going to work. So after I had my 4th one, I found out that you could teach classes, and I was like, oh wow, I'll do that. I'll teach classes until I can be a doula. And I figured I would like teaching classes. Like, I figured that would be a fun thing to do, but I didn't realize that I would love it the way that I do, and that it would be like so like magical, like such an amazing, just,
and it's rewarding too.
It is. And I think it's like, I love the babies, the babies, that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
But I really I love the relationships. Mm-hmm. I love watching the couples grow closer together. Like, that to me is just like so special, because then that sets them up well for parenthood and to raise this little person. And so it's really interesting. And and ironically, like, doulaing is like the least of what I've done over the years. I worked with a midwife for a lot of years, assisting at birth. So I've been to a lot of births, but not as a doula for most of them. But I love it. It's like, I hope I get to teach forever and ever, because
that's so amazing. That's so amazing. It's funny, we talked about how very early on, how like the beauty of birth and giving birth isn't necessarily portrayed in like social media or the culture or the movies. It's more like, you want a brace, it's an emergency, then it's really expensive, then it's really time, occupies a lot of time, which is all kind of true at a certain extent. But we don't necessarily see, and so far in our culture, our like Hollywood and movies were the example of things of how people live their life, which isn't true because it's Hollywood and so, but whatever. But that's kind of what we look at. First when we were little, we watch the Disney movies, so we think we're going to be a princess, and then somebody, usually like a family member, dies, and then it's like, oh, I will survive on my own. I don't know. And then you watch more Hollywood movies.
True. You're like, what in the world?
It's true. It's like, Mufasa dies and Simba's like, let me figure it out. Bambi's mom dies and he has figured out. Like, all the princesses' moms are dead somehow, and they're just on their own. They got to figure it out. So as a kid, you're like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out, and I'll slay my own dragon. But we look for that as an example.
Yeah.
And then you continue watching these movies, and you see relationships, so you kind of base your relationships off of that. You're like, oh, well, that's what dating is like, and that's what marriage is like, whatever. But that's our examples. If you're lucky, I think if you're lucky and you have great parents who set great example of love and marriage and parenthood, I think that's the most special thing you can give somebody, because then you see it right there and how it actually works.
Yeah.
Because what we see on TV isn't real. And most of the time doesn't match real life. Right. But that was our example. And so it kind of shapes your reality to be that. And then when you're surprised that it's not that, or you want it to be that, I think sometimes we see something being negative and we almost crave for it to be like that because that's what we saw and that's what we expected. And so birth isn't portrayed as this beautiful thing and this reunion of mom and baby. You know, babies are in you this whole time, and then finally you get to meet this baby that you were supposed to be with. And it's sad. Although I think what's cool now is that the culture's kind of swinging from only Hollywood being the big stars. But at first, I used to cringe at the word influencer because I'm like, what? Like, come on. Come on. Do you know that account, Influencers in the Wild?
No.
It's an Instagram account where somebody posts of like somebody else recording somebody else doing like a TikTok dance, and they're just like,
oh, that's hilarious.
Quietly. I'm going to send it to you because you're going to love it.
That sounds amazing.
It's so funny. It's just like people dancing, but there's no music because they're whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it's so funny. But that is where the culture is swinging. And so these micro influencers who are like mini moms or like celebrities, and they're saying like, hey, this is actually how I did my birth. And they have these mom followers who are following them to maybe do it a certain way. And so in a way that's kind of cool because it's opening up, instead of like the 5 celebrity moms that we all kind of look up to be how to be a mom, which they do it very differently, to, okay, how are these more real moms? I mean, it's still Instagram, it's still filtered, it's still, you don't get to see, sure, but it's not as big of a production as Hollywood is. And so there is some reality in it. And you can almost try to find other examples of things that, you know, you can connect to.
Yeah.
But I still think, I mean, I wish, and maybe it's just from my trauma, but I wish every kid could have a really good family unit of like parents who love them, or, you know, whatever, like just feeling love and never feeling like they have to compete for love, feel like they have to attain a degree or a job title or whatever, or fold towels a certain way, or make eggs a certain way, whatever it is that is your triggers. Like, sometimes I love who I am, and I wouldn't change anything because I am where I am and I love where I am. And I think all the things I had to do was to learn how to be a great mom for my daughter, Paisley. Yeah. At first I thought all these things were my route. But then I had a baby, I was like, oh my gosh, all these things were happening for me to learn how to be now a mom. This is now kind of, I'm still my own person, but this is her path and my path, you know?
Yeah.
And so all these things are kind of coming together, but I just want to, I don't know. You get it.
I do. Yeah. I think it's, you know, other things that they didn't tell you before you had kids was that you are figuring yourself out as yourself, as you're also figuring yourself out as a mother. Yeah. And like you said, like you're still you. So like being a mother isn't your whole identity, but it also is in a way, because now you have this new role, you have this huge responsibility is what it is. Yeah. You have this huge responsibility to raise a person who can go out in the world and be a good human. and so like, and then you're also, but you're evolving, like you yourself are also evolving along with this. Yeah. And in a way, like, you know, I don't know how else to, you know, but your kid's kind of along for the ride, but you want that ride to be like this great ride, not this like trauma-ridden ride.
Yeah.
It's really, I think it's hard. And I think like for the most part, we're all doing the best we can. And we learn as we go, and we tweak things as we go, and we change things that don't work, and we try this and we say, oh, that was bad. And we try this and we say, oh, that works, until that didn't work anymore. And so you do something else. And so like, it's this ever evolving thing. It's not just like, this is how you do it and this is how we'll do it forever, because that's not how we are as humans. And then like also trying to remember like to still just be yourself and be true to yourself while you're also being true to your children and your partner, and you have a job that you like, like there's just so many
moving parts.
Yeah, so many moving parts.
Yeah.
And I think that there are going to be times when something slips because something else takes priority, and then something else will take priority while this thing is moving on its own for right now. And they're just evolving moving parts constantly.
And that's what's so interesting. I think you're such a great example of, I think before we hopped on, we kind of discussed how sometimes there can be a lot of judgment among moms, among parents in general, and something to always remember, like every kid is different and every family is different. I think you're a great example of like, you have 6 kids. And so you can see how you can't just assume that they're all going to be the same. Right. Even with one family, 2 same parents in the same home, or if you moved, whatever. But like,
yeah, exactly.
You are still different people. So the way you're raising them, the way, like you said, you communicate with them is going to be different.
Yeah.
The way you have an individual personal relationship is going to be different. And that's within one family. Mm-hmm. So now you have such a great understanding of how different it can be.
Yeah.
And I can see why you pass 0 judgment on any family, because you're like, well, we do it so differently in my family. As long as you're doing what's best for your family, that's right. As long as your baby's healthy, happy.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like we're doing the best we can, and with what we know. And then when we know something different, or we learn something, or we realize something about our children or about ourselves or whatever, then we can tweak that. And so I think I feel like that's probably my biggest thing, like being a mother, is that I didn't know that in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that there are so many different ways to do things. I thought that there's the right way. There's the right way to do things. And as I got older, and as I had more kids, and as I saw these different kinds of families, I realized there's not one way. There's not one way to do anything. And giving people space to learn and to grow and to do what's right for them. And I think is huge. And I think I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had to be able to be at that place, because I think it does give people room to be whoever they want to be with me. And I like that. I that's what I want. That's my goal.
Yeah. I think it's so beautiful, because in a way, it almost like we get to have these children in our lives to almost help us unlearn, to, like you said with your second kid, he said, why do we need to put him away? And I'm guessing in your mind, you're like, well, that's just what we do. Like, we put him away. Yeah. But that was one way of doing it. Instead of putting him in a box, maybe he wants to throw him in the bag or put him in another room. Like, so what's the goal? The goal is to clear the space. So how can we do it? And to break it down and realize, oh, there's different ways to do it, to then unlearn the one way you were taught to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see. Yeah, it's interesting to see, like we had talked about, like our parents had one way of doing it, and now we kind of have more information due to technology and whatever. But we have more information, so we can make a different choice because there's been more information. If we were only locked in with a certain amount, we would probably do the exact same thing.
Right.
But we have this richness of information that we can get to, and so we can now choose a different path. And I'm really interested to see what will be available for our kids.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be doing it different than what we're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think it'll be then on us to make sure that we are encouraging them in that way and not taking offense to it. I feel like a lot of like my parents and people my age's parents get real offended. Well, I did it that way and it all turned out fine.
Oh my God, that's their favorite quote. Like, let's put it on a t-shirt, get it for every grandma and grandpa, and let's call it a day, because that is it.
Yeah.
And they are so offended by it.
Right. And I want to do better than that. So like, I have a friend of mine, we have like this ongoing list of, when we're grandparents, these are the things we'll do. These are the things we don't do.
I love that.
Like, put that one on the list.
Yes.
And because I do, like, I want to be better. I want my children to be better better parents than I am. And I hope that I'm a better parent than my parents were. And, so if everybody's just always working toward, with, like you said, like with the information that we have and, that's good. That's okay. That's the goal. Let's always be moving forward and not
let's be improving. Yeah. I get that way sometimes about like, I put out videos, content, whatever, and I'll look back at a video and I'm like, that is so embarrassing. Why did I do that? And then I'm trying to then have a second conversation on top of it to be like, it is so good that I'm cringing at myself because it means I have improved.
Right.
It's not that I was bad, which I was, but I am growing. And it's good that you were bad before because it means that growth has happened. If you are the same, then we're not getting anywhere. But I do hope the same for my kid. I already tell him, like, you are more smarter, you are more beautiful, you are funnier than me, like you are just better than me, like already you're better than me and you're just one. I hope she's a better mom. I hope she's a better I hope I can shed all the chains that are holding me back, that are affecting my self-confidence or attitude or this. I mean, sometimes I really do wonder what kind of a human being I'd be if I didn't have the trauma responses that I carry with me constantly.
Yeah. Same.
I want to know that girl almost. I'd like to meet her and be like, yo, how's it going? Yeah. Oh, you don't jump when people ask you about eggs? That must be cool.
That must be really nice.
You don't get mad when people fold towels a different way? You just don't get angry about it? You just live freely and have a good life?
What a life. Wow.
What's that like? Yeah. What is that like? I want to know. Because it's... And I have the understanding that I should just drop these things and let them go. But I guess in a way, I don't know exactly what they are yet.
Yeah.
And they just occupy this space. They live rent-free in my head, as the kids say these days.
Is that what they say? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Probably not anymore. Sometimes I read things and I'm like, I don't know what that says. And then I'm like, I feel like, yeah.
I'm like 422 now. Like, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah. And it was the other day, but I was talking something to my husband. I was like, do you know no cap means like no lie, like no joke? I'm telling the truth. I
learned that one recently.
Such a weird thing. I think it's from like a song. The way we're describing it now probably makes it sound like we're 90. No cap.
Well, no, yeah. Like,
no cap, girl.
And I'll be like, did I use that right?
Yeah.
And they're like,
yeah. I'm trying the word chuggy because it was weird, and I find it so weird. I feel like it's the weirdest. Do you know the word chuggy? Chuggy is...
What is the word? Say it again.
Chuggy. It's
chuggy.
It's CHEUGY, and it's so funny. It's so funny because I think it's the weirdest word, and people brought it up to be meaning something. But what it means is having live, laugh, love signs in your house, or getting it's being basic. Or getting lattes, or having those cups with like words on them,
that's
chuggy. Lululemons became chuggy. So pretty much our era, our generation, I think skinny jeans are considered chuggy. I think side part is considered chuggy. What I'm saying is we're chuggy, but we didn't know that it had a word till they made it up. It just chuggy is a funny sounding word to me, so I try to plug it in anywhere.
Like a granola bar, like
like a crunchy but a chuggy.
Yeah. Do you want the chuggy or the crunchy granola bar?
Yeah. I think the word itself is so funny, but I don't know if it has a definition. It's like it's just this era of living of when you bought things at like I don't know. I picture like Ross and Home Goods of those like wall things and t-shirts and I think they went after leggings and long shirts are chuggy.
Well, you know where leggings and long shirts can go to the liquor store.
Yeah, exactly. You can wake up with them. You can get everything done in them.
You can.
They're a mom uniform, and everyone gets one. When you give birth, you get a pair of leggings.
You get the, you get all the privileges that come with that, like, drinking wine with your dinner and,
there are privileges to being chuggy, all right, young kids.
That's right. Listen here.
Listen here, guys.
Listen here, dearies.
All right, Cheryl, I have to go and feed my baby and get
right.
with her. But I loved talking to you, and
so
I'd
fun.
love to talk to you again.
Yes, I would love this.
When people say that someone is a breath of fresh air, I understood it, but I think you are that.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I think you are that. You're very like uplifting and confident in what you're doing, and it comes from this knowledge that you like feel within yourself when it comes to your family, when it comes to your teaching. And gosh, I just want to see more of that in the world. But like, you are literally doing God's work. I don't know whether you're religious or not, but like, you are helping families.
I love it.
You're helping your own family, and they're gonna have families. Like, you're being a great mom, and they're gonna have great kids. Like, and then you're helping all these other kids. I mean, it's just beautiful. But you are that. Like, you shine when you talk about it. It's so pleasant. I've never really used that word, but like, that's what you are. You're very like that. That's that.
That's very sweet. Thank you. This has been really fun. This has been. I think you're doing a great job. I was a little bit nervous to come on.
You got here early, and no one ever has. You're so far one of my favorite guests because
as soon as you said Cheryl, I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. Like, the first word came out of your mouth, and I was like, okay, like immediately I was at ease, and I was like, okay, this is going to be great. So you do a great job.
That makes me so happy. Sometimes when I just ask people like, hey, I'd love to have you on, let's talk about your mother journey. I've had moms who are like, well, what are you going to ask? What are we going to talk about? Like, I'm like, nothing you don't want to talk about, because we all have secrets. We all have our skeletons, whatever. Somebody had commented and said, fun rant. So, okay, whatever.
Oh, okay, well, story of my life. That's me. I'm a fun rant.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure this podcast is like free and easygoing, and there isn't one way to do things. There isn't one way to mom. There isn't like, just we're all doing our best.
We are. That's
in our chuggy pants, you know. Like, that's all we're trying to do.
Maybe that was the rant. Maybe that was the fun rant they were talking about.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Our chuggy thing. Well, this was really fun. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on.
Of course, thank you for coming on, and I'd love to talk to you again maybe another time. I feel like we didn't really talk about the boot camp or there's just so much more to you. So I'd love to have you on.
An hour goes by really fast.
Not exactly when you're watching a kid, like a baby, play the same button.
That is very true. Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, it's been 10 minutes. Really? It felt like an hour. And I'm like, okay, it's only been 20 minutes. Like, it's been 2 hours. I feel like, whatever. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for being on. Thank you for going to the library to do it. And it was a pleasure to talk to you. You too. And I'll reach out again because I'd love to talk to you again.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, bye, Cheryl.
Bye.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I have 2 more coming up this weekend, so I'll see you guys then. But until then, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye.